Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory nikke video, and I'm doing some Brid testing. So I've been doing a variety of situations with her, and I'm going to give you a quick preview of what the tests I'm going to show you are, and then do a little bit of comparison with her with kind of an unexpected unit as well. So right now we are doing our base OP fire team, okay? So realistically, there's probably not a lot of situations you'd actually use this team, but I'm just like, if you are going for a wind boss, what is the most OP thing you can do if you just put everything on one team? So you can see we have Rappy as our burst 1, then for our burst 2s we got Asuka and Ray, Brid of course being the burst 2, and then Modernia being our off burst 3. So we'll see what kind of damage score we get here, and then we're going to do a direct comparison with her against Grave, because right now Grave is the premier top tier burst 2 for fire. I will be surprised if Brid can get as good as Grave, but hey, we'll see how far off she is. After that, we're going to do a little bit more of a realistic fire team that you might actually use in a solo raid. So switching up the composition where we're not just putting all our fire units on one team. Then I'm going to put her on a shotgun team in a couple different variations so you can see how she performs in kind of like a generic situation where you're not just targeting a fire weak boss only. And then, like I said, I'm going to do a comparison of her with another unit at the end. I think that Brid is a pretty solid unit, but we're going to see what the numbers actually say. So we're coming to the end of our test here. Let me know in the comments below what your predictions are. No cheating. I'm sure you've probably done research on the internet. And as smart gacha game players, you've probably done some of your own testing as well. Okay, so our first full damage number is 13.666 billion. Wow, okay, what a number. So let's take a look at the individual results. Modernia doing the most damage here, followed by Rappy, and then Asuka and Ray are almost the same. And Brid kind of struggling to keep up, but hey, that's not too surprising, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and record this, and then we're going to swap out Grave, and I also want to show you what my Brid stats are so you know what we're working with. So before I pull in Grave, let's just take a look at what Brid looks like right now. I overloaded 3 of her pieces of equipment. I didn't do the boots just to save some resources because it's not going to have any relevance to her damage. I did get her helmet completely maxed out, and then her chest and her arms are base. I got all of her skills to level 7. This is what I would recommend if you're seriously going to use her. Pretty much all of her skills are of equal value. There isn't really one I would really massively prioritize over another, and they're all worth building up. And of course, if you want to go all in, but I probably wouldn't use your resources to get her to level 10. So I have her all at 7. The resilience cube is going to be best in slot for her. If you don't have any ammo lines on her, you're going to want to do something like the Bastion cube to give her more ammo, but ideally you'll have some ammo. So here are my overload lines. On her helmet, I have attack, crit rate, and hit rate. On her arms, I have attack and ammo. And then on her chest, I have attack and elemental. Got a nice blue line there. A bit of a low roll on the attack, but I have another line of attack here and a rather high roll of attack here. So pretty good stats for her, honestly. This can really be optimized, but I don't want to spend a ton of resources. But I would definitely prioritize attack rolls more than any other stat. And then you do want that all-important ammo line. I want at least 1 so she doesn't have to reload in between doing 10 shots because of her skill 2, which says she will increase damage taken for every 10 normal attacks. And if you have to reload, that's going to make this trigger way less often. So in order of priority, I would do attack stats, then elemental damage, and then ammo. And then, you know, whatever you want to do for some hit rate or crit damage or whatever, that's fine. But definitely want 1 or 2 lines of ammo on her, and then attack is above everything else. Okay, so let's drop in Grave and see what kind of damage we get in total this time. Wrapping up the test with Grave here, and you can see we're about to end. We have 5 seconds left here, but the damage is looking surprisingly close. Grave has already passed up the team with Brid, but honestly, not by nearly as much as I expected. So with Brid, we did 13.666 billion, and this one we're doing 14.548. So an increase in damage, but fairly marginal. This is making Brid looked quite impressive, to be honest, especially considering how OP Grave can be combined with all these MGs. Brid is honestly very, very impressive. So next we're going to do some tests with some shotguns with a few variations and take a look at how she might perform on like a generic damage shotgun team. Alright, so we're fighting a wind weak boss, so no one's really doing an elemental damage here. Volume is, but like none of our DPS units are. So is it good enough to run a shotgun team on like a generic damage situation? Here I'm using Leona because she's kind of the baseline for this team, and we're adding in volume for some cooldown reduction. After this, we'll swap out Leona and put in Brid and see if there's any improvement. Now, we are doing 18.138 billion here. Here's some individual damage numbers, which aren't really that important. But the question here is like, is Brid still going to contribute much if we're not getting that wind weak or elemental damage bonus? That is a big part of her kit. So again, 18.138, we'll do the same thing now with Brid. Oops, okay, hold up. I just realized I read my best damage, not the total damage. I was wondering why that was so big. Okay, 4.628, keep that in mind. Total damage, 4.628 billion. Okay, now we'll do it with Brid. Wow, okay, this is honestly really surprising. This is almost identical to Leona and actually doing slightly more. So at least in this situation on the shotgun team, Brid is holding her own. I mean, she's basically an exact side grade, if not slight edge on the shotgun team without having elemental damage, as opposed to using Leona. So again, this is a shotgun team where we're using volume for some cooldown reduction. Now I'm gonna do a shotgun team where we're using Bunny Soda and Off-Burst Drake, because that's another common shotgun team, and in this case, you know, we're just extending our burst duration instead of doing the burst cooldown, and we'll see if that makes much of any difference. So overall damage is going up on this version of the shotgun team. Doesn't really matter, but again, this is just a baseline with Leona. So we're doing 5.206, and we're just going to see if Brid has any different impact in this type of team comp versus the other shotgun team comp. Again, this is all on neutral damage. 5.206, let's see what Brid does. Okay, so not exactly surprising results, but Brid again doing extremely similar damage. Nothing really changed about this comp. Brid has pretty generic skills that aren't going to favor anyone specifically. So in this case, we're doing 5.218 versus the previous 5.206. Again, doing just a hair more with Brid, you know, showing up Leona, but basically a side grade. So proof that Brid does work in a generic damage situation. Honestly, pretty impressive. I think that, you know, Brid is maybe doing better here than a lot of people would expect. That said, I don't know if this is really relevant. You know, a lot of people talked about using her on a generic team with like shotgun, but the reality is you're probably just not going to do that, right? Because if you're making one team for just like any situation like campaign or whatever, you're probably just going to do something way more OP with using a burst to like Crown or an Ayuta, and you're just not really going to be messing with Brid at all. So with that said, I want to move on to a more realistic raid situation where we're going to use a fire team with Siren, Rappy, Mihara, and Helm, and Crown versus Siren, Rappy, Brid, Mihara, and Modernia. So we can see how Brid might fit onto like a real fire raid team versus just the all-in fire team at the beginning, and we'll see if she would be worth it in most raid situations. So we're back to fighting a wind boss, weak to fire of course, and we're using a really OP fire team that you might use in a real raid. Now, obviously, your raid team composition is going to change a lot depending on the individual boss, but this is one that was used in previous wind weak bosses, and we're using one of the most OP units in the game of Crown, and our baseline damage here is 17.371 billion. Let me record that really quick. So 17.371 billion. And we can see our individual damage scores here. Rappy absolutely being a beast, and of course Mihara not far behind. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing, but with Brid. However, if we take out Crown and we put in Brid, this also means we don't need to run Helm anymore. So we can take out Helm and put in another super strong off burst DPS like Modernia. Now, you know, are we going to be running Mihara at the same time? Probably not for most raids, because she'll probably be an off burst on something else, but I don't want to change this too dramatically. I want this to be as like close of a comparison as we can. And again, the exact comp of your raid teams is going to change depending on the boss. And you know, this is just to get an idea of like, how does Brid measure up against basically the best unit in the game, and you know, how relevant will she be in raids. Okay, we're coming down to the last couple seconds of our test with Brid, and wow, this is actually way closer than I expected. This is very, very good. So we can see right there, our previous best score was 17.371 using Crown, and then when we put in Brid, we were doing 16.630. This is a very good look for Brid. I mean, considering Crown is literally the best unit in the game, this is very, very good results. Clearly her buffs are working, the debuffs on the enemy are working. The damage output from herself is honestly not that big, even with some pretty good attack rolls that I have on her, but really, really good. I mean, we're doing less than 1 billion less than with, using Crown. And again, we're able to take off Helm and put in Modernia, so we're getting some more damage from her, of course, as well. So, again, this is going to change a lot depending on exactly what raid you're doing, but I think Brid absolutely has a place on your fire raid teams, and in theory, you could even be using a generic team, but again, I just think that point is kind of moot because there's just so many better options for like a generic team that like who's really going to be doing that, even though she can stack up on a shotgun team. So is she worth pulling? We'll answer that in just a second. I do want to just point out something interesting about her, okay? So if we take a look at Brid, I currently have her skills all at level 7, and she has a damage taken debuff of 13% here, and then a damage taken debuff of 10% here, for a potential of 23% damage taken, and that is very significant, okay? Now, obviously, this only works for win code bosses, but we just recently got another unit that does a similar thing. If we take a look at Delta, she has a skill here, which is damage taken 12% for 15 seconds. Now, this is lasting longer than the 10 seconds, although Brid triggers off of 2 different things. Sometimes they are going to overlap, maybe sometimes they are not going to. But when we're getting a total of 23% damage taken at level 7 versus 12% damage taken at level 10, you can see how Brid is going to do quite well. And before you guys say, oh, Delta is terrible, Delta was used on the recent solo raid in top tier teams, and actually, one of the main reasons was because of this damage taken debuff. So I just kind of wanted to point that out there, that Brid is kind of doing a similar thing there. Definitely in a different situation, you're only going to get that in the elemental damage, and again, her damage taken debuffs are going to be split across these 2 skills, versus Delta is going to be, doing it with the 1 skill. Slightly longer duration, whereas Brid sometimes is going to overlap, sometimes isn't, it just kind of depends. But I wanted to throw out that comparison there, and kind of show the relevance of damage taken and just how good that can be. And, just to say that I'm not super surprised that Brid is actually quite good. So is Brid worth pulling? I mean, yeah, I would definitely say so. I would say these results show that Brid is quite a strong unit. That said, right around the corner is New Year's, right? And there's speculation on getting a very, very good unit. More than likely, we always get a good unit for New Year's. And so we'll see exactly what that unit is. I'm pretty hyped for it. So if you're low on resources, maybe don't. If you're not someone that's going to be pushing solo raid a lot, then sure, she's not going to be worth it. I would definitely prioritize Brid over Diesel. Again, not that Diesel is terrible, but Brid is a lot more applicable in more situations, and I think is just kind of better all overall value. And if you're low on resources and you really want to save for that New Year's Eve unit, then maybe skip both of them. But I would try and get Brid. I think Brid is worth it, particularly if you have some gold tickets saved up, right? If you go here and you have at least 200, maybe more, then you can kind of pull on Brid guilt-free, right? And then you can just guarantee that you're going to pick up the new unit. But let me know what you're planning to do. Let me know if you have any questions about this. Hopefully this was helpful in understanding Brid and seeing just how good she can be. Don't forget to subscribe for more Nikke videos if you haven't already. I also stream every week. Got links to my community Discord, all the things. Do the things. Thank you for the support, guys. I am an official Nikke content creator, and I'll catch you guys in the next video or stream.